Alright, so we all know that a remastered version of Fallout 3 is on the way within the next few years, given the fact that its existence was leaked alongside the Oblivion remaster, and knowing that the Oblivion remaster was also a part of that same leak, and it ended up being real, and was also for the most part positively received when it launched earlier this year. Some of you might not know this, but Fallout 3 was the first Bethesda game I purchased and played to completion, and to be completely honest, depending on the day, it's usually a toss-up between Fallout 3 and the original Dishonored for my favorite Bethesda game of all time. I love them equally for very different reasons. It opened my eyes to the wonders of a post-apocalyptic open-world RPG where you can create your own character, go wherever you want, do whatever you wanted. However, Fallout 3 released in 2008, and there are parts of the experience that I think it's safe to say have not aged gracefully. Seeing the many improvements and changes that Virtuos Studio made to the Elder Scrolls Oblivion with the remastered version got me to thinking, what are some of the most important changes that could be made to the remaster of Fallout 3? Changes that wouldn't sacrifice the spirit of the original game, but rather would enhance and modernize it for a new generation to set foot in the Capital Wasteland for the very first time. So in today's video, I'm going to be going over my personal wish list of 5 updates that I think Bethesda Game Studios and Virtuos need to make to the Fallout 3 remaster to bring it up to modern standards and remind everyone why it is one of the greatest video games ever made. So if you're new to this channel or you're a returning viewer and you're looking for coverage of Bethesda games, Arcane Studios, what have you, welcome to the Arcane realm. Make sure to leave a like on the video if you enjoy it, subscribe to the channel if you are interested in any of the stuff that I cover here or if you end up enjoying. And with that, let's jump right into this. The easiest and most obvious place to start with improving Fallout 3 is the gameplay, and more specifically the first-person shooting, because let's be honest, it wasn't groundbreaking gunplay in 2008, and it's even clunkier now than it was then. That being said, going back to Fallout 3 nowadays, there's a certain charm in how clunky the combat is, something that I would personally like to see Virtuos find ways to maintain in this new version. Primarily though, I think the best position to get Fallout 3's combat to is at least on par with that of Fallout 4 and Fallout 76 at the minimum, since those games took solid strides in improving the combat and the gunplay. Make the act of firing your weapons more fluid and natural, make the melee weapons slightly punchier, and basically just do what Oblivion did. Retain the feeling of the original, but spice it up and give it more weight with better hit responses from enemies, better and more fluid animations, and increased movement capabilities. Speaking of movement, you gotta put sprint in the remaster. Exploring the Capital Wasteland, while incredibly immersive and atmospheric, can sometimes feel like a bit of a slog when you can't get from point A to B in a reasonable amount of time. In addition, let's maybe add in some weapons that the original game never featured, perhaps some of the weapons seen in later titles like New Vegas. Let me tell you, I personally think the anti-material rifle from New Vegas would go absolutely hard in Fallout 3. If we're upgrading the player's arsenal and capabilities though, I believe it's only fair that the enemies you face get a boost as well. Bethesda's games have never had the greatest AI, as they tend to kind of just run at you in a straight line, particularly the mutant enemy types like the Mirelurks and the Deathclaws. However, improving the humanoid AI specifically, such as raiders and super mutants, I think could really go a long way to improving these combat encounters, giving them the ability to take cover, flank, or even be more proactive in throwing grenades and aggressively pursuing the player. All these changes could make combat encounters feel more varied and unique. Now, the last gameplay update we need to talk about is arguably the most crucial, and that is VATS. In the original release of Fallout 3, VATS could be used to pause the game in the middle of combat to target specific weak points on an enemy, and this could also, unfortunately, be exploited in many ways that would allow the player to have some breathing room in combat encounters that they might not have been able to have otherwise. Now, what I'm about to say might sound like a hot take for some of you, given the fact that in Fallout 4 and Fallout 76, VATS was updated to be a feature that the player utilizes in real time rather than pausing the game. But my honest opinion, for Fallout 3 Remastered, don't change VATS. Do not touch it at all. Just leave it alone. Leave it the way it is. While I do recognize that VATS was used primarily as a bit of a crutch due to Fallout 3's clunky gunplay, even despite the fact that I'm arguing for more changes to the actual gunplay itself, I still think that VATS allowing the player to pause the game and target enemy body parts was such an integral part of that original experience that, in my opinion, changing it in any way could sacrifice some of that charm that Fallout 3 had and still has to this day. Now, the next area I want to cover is the visual style and art direction of Fallout 3. I know that a lot of people make jokes about how the original game has this sort of green, sickly hue to it with a bunch of browns and grays that are thrown in for good measure, but this color palette is crucial to what made Fallout 3 so gritty, so immersive, and so atmospheric. It was a sharp contrast to have oftentimes darkly comical quest lines and characters you encounter exist in such a dreary world. This color palette of drab greens, browns, and grays should absolutely be maintained for the remaster, but made to be just a bit livelier, however not quite as beautiful as Fallout 4 with that game's crisp blue skies and its brighter aesthetic. Character models could also get a facelift, and given what we saw Virtuos do with the Oblivion remaster and those character models, specifically the Argonians and the Khajiit, I think they could do some great things to bring Fallout 3's NPCs forward with higher quality texture work. One thing I do not want to see Virtuos do, however, is update some of the enemy NPC models to their more recent versions. Specifically, I'm talking about, as a fan, I am not at all happy with some of the changes that Bethesda's art team made to some of the enemies that you fight, specifically the Mirelurks and the Feral Ghouls. They were made to be less scary and intimidating than they were originally in Fallout 3, and enemy types like the Mirelurk King underwent, in my opinion, far too drastic changes. The Feral Ghouls were literal zombies in Fallout 3, and then in Fallout 4 the character models were softened for some reason and made to look less emaciated, another change that I very much disagreed with. So Virtuos, please don't change the models themselves to reflect their newer counterparts in the later games. There are some models that you are more than welcome to update, like the Deathclaw, for example. I love what Bethesda did with the Deathclaw in Fallout 4 and Fallout 76, making him this hulking dinosaur that can just get down on all fours, chase after you, and maul you to death. The art direction of Fallout 3 should also remain intact, specifically that overall look of the bombed out wasteland and the strange art deco design and those weird faces that you could find on many buildings in the downtown DC area, evocative of those original Fallout games. Fallout 3's visual language of America's capital feeling like the most dangerous, war-torn place on Earth stands in sharp contrast to Fallout 4 and its vision of the people of the wasteland rebuilding. Virtuos should also maybe do some work to update lighting and shadows, specifically in areas like the DC Metro tunnel system, to make those areas even more horrifying to venture into. Some other areas I think need to be improved for the remaster are with regard to gameplay systems like leveling and karma. The level cap in the original Fallout 3 was 30, and that absolutely needs to be raised to at least 50. You could hit the level cap far too quickly in the original Fallout 3, and while I don't think that Bethesda and Virtuos should make it to where you can just level up infinitely like you could in Fallout 4 or Skyrim, I do think that you should at least be rewarded for your exploits a little bit longer by bumping up that level cap just a smidge. Fallout New Vegas and its level 50 cap did a lot to enhance the experience of fighting through and exploring the Mojave wasteland in that game. The skill system and the way perks were handled in Fallout 3 should remain unchanged for the most part, although it might help to push the player towards a specific playstyle and lock them into a role, as opposed to, as much as I enjoy this, being a walking hurricane in the original game after you acquired a multitude of perks and maxed out certain skills. The karma system, I believe, though, is where most of the changes need to happen. You see, it was very easy in Fallout 3 to make decisions that would land you in either the good or bad karma camp, but players who were looking to remain neutral would have a much harder time maintaining neutral karma. Therefore, I feel the karma system system should be updated to make neutral karma more easily attainable for those who want to roleplay their lone wanderer as someone who could be considered more morally gray. An aspect of Bethesda's games that has remained fairly consistent throughout the years is their oftentimes poor performance on a variety of hardware, due to the limitations of Bethesda Game Studios' engine. The Fallout 3 remaster should be able to hit a bare minimum of 60 frames per second on both PC and console, and for PC specifically, frame rates should be completely uncapped. This was something that was impossible when Fallout 3 originally launched due to the Gamebryo engine's frame rate being tied to the Havok physics engine, meaning if you turned that frame rate up any higher than 60 FPS, the game's physics would just completely shit the bed and your character would miraculously turn into the fastest man alive. Changing this will go a long way to making Fallout 3 a more stable and consistent experience all the way throughout. Adding in options for PC players like FSR and DLSS, something that many developers sadly rely on these days as a crutch for poor optimization, is also something that I do expect to see in the Fallout 3 remaster to make up for any shortcomings in performance and optimization, as much as I disagree personally with the over-reliance on those features. It's also generally understood by now that the game will likely run on Unreal Engine 5, much like the Oblivion remaster did, and we all know that UE5 has a multitude of problems that cannot be easily fixed, but Virtuos should be doing everything in their power to optimize the living hell out of this game to make sure that it is not a repeat of the Oblivion remaster, because while Oblivion was received fairly well at launch, we're several months separated from that release, and many community members have been very vocal about the performance issues that still have not been ironed out to this day. Some smaller changes that could be brought to the Fallout 3 remaster that I think are important would be things that we saw the Oblivion remaster also do. In particular, the addition of brand new actors to the voice cast so that you're not hearing the same 5 performances from the same 5 actors. Also, in stark contrast to the Oblivion remaster, I think more should be done to make the Fallout 3 remaster more modder friendly for people who want to be able to skirt around the Unreal Engine's harsh limitations. Whether it be through an official modding system introduced by Bethesda and Virtuos, similar to the creation kit that their modern titles have, or whether it be, unfortunately, through the paid creation system that, while many of us are not fond of, there are players who would gladly spend their money on mods to support those mod creators and thereby increase the lifespan of the remaster itself. Another change that could be made to the remaster, and I'm not really certain that Bethesda and more specifically Todd Howard would be willing to sign off on this, are teases for what the future of the franchise could look like, whether that's a tease for Fallout 5 or maybe even a teaser for the TV show and its forthcoming 3rd season. Throwing the fans a bone like this could do a lot to put more eyes on the remaster and get more people excited about the future of the franchise. But ultimately, these are just a few things that I think could maybe be updated or changed with the Fallout 3 remaster. The most important thing now is what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you agree or disagree with some of the opinions I shared? What are some things that you would like to see updated or changed in the forthcoming Fallout 3 remaster? Once again, let me know in the comments down below. Leave a like on this video if you did enjoy it. Consider subscribing to the channel if you want more coverage of Bethesda, Fallout, Arcane, all of the Bethesda stuff basically going forward. Also, make sure to join our community Discord. The link to that is going to be in the description down below. It is free to join. There's no paywall for it, and you're more than welcome to become a part of this community and discuss everything Bethesda, Arcane, all of it in between. And remember that the outsider walks among us. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time.